Hello, readers. We have talked a lot in reading about how to solve words. Let's look at the chart we have and do a little remembering about what we've learned so far. Our chart reminds us that we can solve words by breaking them into syllables. Penguin, penguin. We can break them into first and last parts. D-og, dog. We can say each letter sound. Stretchy snake. So, k, cake. Or we can break words into consonant clusters. App, clap. Now, when we talked about consonant clusters, we learned how consonant clusters can help us chunk words into parts, and then when we smash them together again, we can read the word. Well, today we're going to keep doing that, but instead of learning about consonant clusters, we're going to learn about something called spelling patterns. Let me show you. Spelling patterns are kind of like consonant clusters because it's two letters clustered together. But are A and T both consonants? No, A is a vowel. So you can see that each of these patterns has a vowel in it, and it also has a consonant. So they're not called consonant clusters. They're just other patterns. And when we learn these other patterns, which we see a lot in words, every time we see them, we can chunk the word. For example, one common spelling pattern we see in words at the end is at, like in sat. Now, if we know that AT makes the at sound, that's a pattern we know, when we see this word and we have to solve it, we can chunk it really easily. At, sat, because we already know that AT makes the at sound. Does that make sense, readers? Can you think of another word that has at in it? Touch your nose when you have an idea. Maybe you were thinking of the word at. You would know this word because it has that gang of three, that three-letter consonant cluster at the beginning and then at the end. At, splat. How about the spelling pattern an, like in pull, an? Can you think of another word that has an in it? Touch your nose when you have one. How about bran? What kind of cereal? Bur-an. There's a consonant cluster at the beginning and then an. What about n, like in pen? Pen. Can you think of another word that has n in it? Touch your nose when you know. Maybe you thought of the bird, wren. That's a digraph, W-R-E-N. What about the spelling pattern et, like in et? Can you think of another word that has et in it? Touch your nose when you know. What about the name? Bur-et. There's a cluster bur at the beginning, and I capitalized it because it's a name. The next spelling pattern is it, like in spit, spit. Can you think of another word that has it in it? Touch your nose when you have it. Maybe you thought of the CVC word bit, it. What about the spelling pattern ig, like in dig, ig? Can you think of another one? Touch your nose when you know. Maybe you thought of pig, ig. Look at the spelling pattern op, like in stop, op. There's a consonant cluster in op. Can you think of another word with op in it? Maybe you thought of the CVC word pop, op. The next spelling pattern is og, like in frog. There's a consonant cluster and then og, frog. When you think of another og word, touch your nose. Maybe you thought of the CVC word log, og. How about un, like in bun, un, another CVC word. When you think of another word with un, touch your nose. Maybe you thought of spun, the cluster sp, un, spun. Our last spelling pattern is ug, like in ugh. Can you think of another? When you think of another word with ug, touch your nose. Maybe you thought of pull, the cluster pull, and then ug. Readers, these are not the only spelling patterns. These are just some common ones that we see a lot in words. Whenever you see spelling patterns, you can sigh with relief. Ah, I know what that sounds like. AT makes at, OP makes op, AN makes an. And that will help you chunk the word. We already know how to chunk the first sound and the last sound, at. We know how to use consonant clusters, even when there's 3, like spul, at. We know digraphs, like WR, make a sound, N. All of these things can help us solve words. So readers, today, when you are reading and you see a word that you don't know that you have to stop and solve, remember, maybe there's a spelling pattern in there that can help you. The reading workshop has begun.